You have spent your entire life being told that intelligence is power. That to be sharp, quick, and always in control is the only way to win. You've been conditioned to believe that competence must be displayed like a badge of honor. That every conversation is a battleground where you must prove your worth. But what if the real game is not about proving your brilliance, but concealing it? What if the most powerful people in the room are not the ones speaking the loudest, but the ones who have mastered the art of strategic stupidity? The deliberate act of playing the fool to outmaneuver those who underestimate them. Think of the last time you saw someone slip through life effortlessly, dodging blame, evading traps, and always landing on their feet while others stumbled. They were the ones who laughed a little too easily, who shrugged when challenged, who pretended not to understand the subtle power plays unfolding around them. And yet somehow, they always got what they wanted. This is not incompetence. This is calculated invisibility, the wisdom of appearing foolish to avoid the snares set for the smart. Baltasar Gracián, the 17th century Jesuit philosopher and strategist, understood this better than anyone. In a world where the courtiers who flaunted their intellect often met swift downfalls, he wrote of the power of controlled ignorance, the ability to mask one's acumen behind a veil of simplicity. To the untrained eye, the strategically stupid seem harmless, even laughable. But beneath the surface, they are the ones pulling the strings, because they have learned the most dangerous truth of all. Sometimes, the only way to win is to let others think they already have. Consider the animal kingdom. The possum does not fight when cornered. It plays dead, and in doing so, escapes unharmed. The fox does not charge headfirst into the hunt. It feints, circles, and lets its prey walk into the trap. Nature itself teaches us that survival is not always about strength, but about deception, about knowing when to step back so that others step forward, into the exact position you want them in. This is the paradox of strategic stupidity. The less you appear to know, the more you actually control. The less you compete for recognition, the more influence you wield in silence. The world is filled with people who are desperate to be seen as the smartest in the room. But the truly dangerous ones are those who let you believe you are. There exists an unspoken arithmetic in human interactions where the apparent equation never reveals the true sum. We move through life believing that to be seen as intelligent is to be respected, that to demonstrate competence is to secure advantage. Yet beneath this surface logic operates a far more potent calculus, one where the deliberate suppression of one's light becomes the very means by which shadows are cast in precisely the right places. Strategic stupidity is not the absence of intelligence, but its redistribution. Not a lack of awareness, but the strategic allocation of attention. It functions as social alchemy, transforming the base metal of others' assumptions into the gold of unobstructed influence. The mechanism operates on a simple but profound psychological truth. People guard against obvious threats but welcome perceived inferiors. When you present yourself as slightly less capable, slightly less perceptive than you truly are, you trigger a cascade of advantageous miscalculations in those around you. Their posture softens, their vigilance relaxes, their secrets spill like overfilled cups. This is the paradox of the strategic fool. By occupying the space beneath others' radar, they actually gain superior positioning. Like a judo master using an opponent's momentum against them, the practitioner of strategic stupidity converts others' condescension into leverage, their patronizing attitudes into opportunities. Gracián's genius lay in recognizing that in a world obsessed with displays of intellect, the real power belonged to those who could resist this compulsion. His writings reveal that the courtier who never corrected the prince's errors ultimately guided policy more effectively than the scholar who insisted on public debate. The merchant who let rivals believe they had the better deal often wound up controlling the market. This is not deception in the crude sense, but rather a sophisticated understanding that human systems operate as much on perception as reality, and that shaping perception often proves more decisive than altering facts. The technique finds its purest expression in what might be called productive misunderstanding. When faced with aggression or manipulation, the strategic fool responds not with confrontation but with artful confusion. They misinterpret threats as jokes, insults as compliments, ultimatums as suggestions. This linguistic jujitsu accomplishes three vital functions. It denies the aggressor the satisfaction of visible impact. It creates space for alternative interpretations to take root. And most crucially, it forces the opponent to either abandon their approach or escalate to a point where their intentions become unmistakably clear to all observers. The fool's apparent simplicity thus becomes an unassailable position. They cannot be baited into emotional reactions nor trapped into unwise commitments. At its philosophical core, strategic stupidity represents a rebellion against the tyranny of constant performance. In an age where social media compels relentless self-display and corporate cultures demand perpetual visibility, choosing selective invisibility becomes a radical act of autonomy. The practitioner understands that not every thought needs expression. Not every capability requires demonstration. They recognize that the spotlight, while flattering, is also a prison, and that true freedom often lies in the comfortable darkness just beyond its reach. This is why the technique has been perfected by everyone from ancient philosophers to modern intelligence operatives. It provides immunity from the exhausting arms race of social competition while yielding superior results. The most sophisticated application transforms the practitioner into a kind of social black hole. Their apparent emptiness actually warps the behavior of those around them in predictable, advantageous ways. Colleagues volunteer information they would normally guard. Competitors reveal strategies they would typically conceal. Adversaries underestimate resources they would otherwise respect. All because the strategically stupid have mastered the art of being present without appearing potent, engaged without seeming dangerous. Like water finding cracks in stone not through force but through persistent, gentle presence. They achieve their ends not by opposition but by patient, imperceptible influence. The power of strategic stupidity echoes through mythology and folklore like a whispered secret passed between generations of those who understood true influence. These are not mere clever tricks, but profound expressions of an eternal truth about human nature. That what appears weak often contains hidden strength, and what seems foolish frequently holds the deepest wisdom. Across cultures and centuries, we find recurring patterns of figures who mastered the art of concealment. Characters whose apparent simplicity masked extraordinary perception. The Norse god Loki, ever the trickster, survived the machinations of gods and giants alike not through brute strength but by playing the fool until the perfect moment to act arrived. His laughter disarmed opponents, his jests concealed razor-sharp intentions, and his chaotic exterior hid a mind that could outmaneuver even Odin's wisdom when necessary. This archetype appears again in the Native American coyote tales, where the scruffy, laughing trickster consistently outwits more powerful beings through his willingness to appear ridiculous. These stories reveal a fundamental truth about power dynamics, that those who cannot be taken seriously cannot be controlled. The court jesters of medieval Europe carried this truth in their motley costumes, their bells jingling with every step as they spoke truths that would have cost others their heads. Their immunity came not from their wit alone, but from the careful cultivation of their role as harmless fools. Shakespeare understood this dynamic intimately, creating fools who were often the wisest characters in his plays. When King Lear's fool whispers, "Have more than thou showest, speak less than thou knowest," he delivers the essential doctrine of strategic stupidity, that survival and influence depend on maintaining a gap between one's knowledge and its display. The fool's advice echoes the Taoist concept of the valley spirit, the empty space that by its very nature receives and contains all things without resistance. Eastern philosophy offers perhaps the most sophisticated exploration of this principle in the concept of Wu Wei, action through non-action, victory through apparent yielding. The Tao Te Ching speaks of water as the softest substance that yet wears away stone, of the hollow reed that survives the storm where mighty trees fall. These are not passive metaphors but active strategies for enduring influence. The Japanese tradition of Taipei and Han, the distinction between public face and private truth, represents another cultural manifestation of this wisdom, where social harmony is maintained through careful management of surface appearances while deeper currents flow undisturbed beneath. A samurai who could play the humble servant while waiting years for the perfect moment of vengeance understood that true strategy operates on multiple levels simultaneously, with the most important moves often being the ones no one notices until it's too late. Religious texts, too, are filled with examples of holy fools, figures whose divine wisdom was cloaked in madness or simplicity. The Sufi mystics practiced divine madness as a way to transcend social constraints, while Christian tradition venerates the holy fool for Christ, who rejects worldly logic to follow higher truths. These traditions recognize that sometimes the straight path requires apparent detours, that the clearest vision may require temporarily closing one's eyes. Even in the animal kingdom we find this wisdom encoded. The possum's death feigning, the cuttlefish camouflage, the chameleon's color changes all speak to the universal advantage of strategic self-effacement. Nature consistently demonstrates that survival belongs not necessarily to the strongest, but to those who best understand how to disappear into their environment when necessary. The symbolic power of these narratives lies in their revelation of a counterintuitive truth, that what we dismiss as weakness often contains hidden strength, and what we celebrate as overt power frequently carries the seeds of its own destruction. The Greek myth of Odysseus and the Cyclops embodies this perfectly. The hero's declaration that his name is nobody allows him to blind his monstrous foe and escape, because when the Cyclops cries that nobody is attacking him, no one comes to his aid. This ancient story captures the essence of strategic anonymity, the power that comes from being unseen, uncredited, and therefore unopposed. Modern intelligence operations continue to rely on this principle, where the most effective agents are those who leave no memorable impression, who blend into the background so completely that they become functionally invisible. These enduring narratives suggest that strategic stupidity taps into something fundamental about the structure of reality itself, that what appears solid is often fragile, and what seems absent frequently exerts the greatest influence. Like dark matter in the cosmos, the practitioner's hidden intelligence shapes outcomes without being directly observed. The stories teach us that the straightest line between 2 points is not always visible, that sometimes we must appear to move away from our goal in order to reach it, must seem to lose in order to ultimately win. They remind us that the universe favors not those who announce their intentions, but those who understand that true power often lies in allowing others to believe they hold it, until the moment when reality quietly, irrevocably shifts. The true test of any philosophy lies not in its elegance but in its application, and strategic stupidity proves most valuable when translated from abstract concept to lived practice. Imagine walking into a high-stakes business negotiation where every participant is jockeying to demonstrate their acumen, each trying to dominate the conversation with displays of industry knowledge and sharp insights. The practitioner of strategic stupidity enters differently. They ask naive questions. They request clarification on points everyone assumes are obvious. They create space for others to reveal their hand while appearing to struggle with basic comprehension. This is not performance art but psychological judo, using others' need to appear intelligent as leverage to extract information and create advantageous positions. The corporate world is filled with unseen battles where the victors are often those who allowed their colleagues to believe they were winning unimportant skirmishes while quietly securing the strategic high ground. Consider how this applies to social dynamics in everyday life. The person who never corrects others' minor errors or factual inaccuracies accumulates social capital, while the habitual corrector builds invisible resentment. The parent who occasionally plays clueless about teenage activities often learns more than the one who demands constant accountability. The teacher who strategically pretends not to notice certain behaviors can sometimes influence conduct more effectively than one who confronts every infraction. These applications reveal the core truth that human relationships operate as much on what is unspoken as what is said, and that sometimes the most powerful position is not at the center of attention but just outside its periphery. In romantic relationships, the partner who can occasionally play the fool diffuses tension where direct confrontation would escalate it, who knows when to misunderstand a barbed comment as harmless teasing preserves harmony while silently noting important information. The digital age has made these skills more vital than ever. In an era of perpetual personal branding and social media performance, where every thought is monetized and every opinion weaponized, the ability to selectively disappear becomes a superpower. The strategically stupid understand that not every conversation requires their participation, that some battles are won by allowing others to exhaust themselves in public forums while they observe and learn. Online, this manifests as the quiet profile that never engages in flame wars but somehow always knows exactly when and where to contribute for maximum impact. It's the professional who lets others dominate virtual meetings with performative contributions while they conserve energy for the private conversations where real decisions are made. The modern world's constant demand for visibility creates unprecedented opportunities for those who understand the value of strategic absence. Financial interactions particularly reward this approach. The savvy investor who plays the wide-eyed novice can sometimes extract better terms than the one who flaunts expertise. The consumer who acts slightly confused about pricing often receives accommodations the aggressive negotiator cannot obtain. In salary discussions, the employee who gently underplays their understanding of market rates may find management volunteering more generous terms to educate them. These scenarios all demonstrate the same principle. People are more generous with those they perceive as less threatening, more inclined to assist those who seem to need guidance. The key lies in balancing this presentation so it never tips into genuine helplessness, maintaining just enough competence to reassure while leaving sufficient gaps to invite advantageous intervention. The transformational power of this approach becomes most apparent in long-term personal development. Practiced consistently, strategic stupidity evolves from a tactic into a worldview, a way of moving through the world that conserves energy, minimizes unnecessary conflict, and maximizes learning opportunities. It fosters humility by requiring regular acknowledgement that there's always more to know, and patience by demanding perfect timing in the revelation of one's capabilities. Perhaps most importantly, it provides protection against the modern epidemic of overexposure, creating healthy boundaries where others might feel compelled to constantly perform. The practitioner becomes like the wise old tree that survives hurricanes by bending while others snap, appearing flexible to the point of weakness while actually embodying extraordinary resilience. We stand at the end of our exploration having uncovered what might be life's most delicious paradox: that true wisdom often wears the mask of foolishness, and real power frequently hides in plain sight. The call to action here is not to adopt a false persona but to liberate yourself from the exhausting burden of constant performance, to discover the freedom that comes when you stop trying to prove your worth at every turn. Strategic stupidity at its highest level isn't about deception but about transcendence, rising above the petty competitions for status that consume so much human energy. It offers a way to navigate systems without being corrupted by them, to participate in games without being trapped by their rules. The transformation occurs when you realize you don't need to win every argument to be right, don't need to dominate every interaction to be powerful, don't need to showcase every skill to be competent. Like an iceberg displaying only its tip while its massive structure remains submerged, you learn to reveal only what serves the moment while keeping your full depth in reserve. This is the ultimate gift of Gracian's wisdom, not just a set of techniques for social manipulation, but a path to authentic personal sovereignty. The choice before you now is simple yet profound. Continue straining to prove your brilliance at every opportunity, or step into the liberating shadow where real influence lives. The world will keep chasing spotlight and validation. Your power lies in knowing when to stand just outside its glow, watching, waiting, and acting with precision when the moment is right rather than when ego demands. In that space of calculated restraint, you'll find not limitation but an unexpected expansion of possibility. The freedom of the fool who was wise enough to never need the world's approval.